Hello folks, let me just start off by thanking all the subscribers who've added me as a subscription on YouTube. Really appreciate it. I've received some great comments and I appreciate every one of them. I love to get that kind of feedback and I hope it continues. Thanks again for checking out my videos on YouTube. I've gotten a couple of messages and some comments on other videos about this thing, my Kegerator. I've been brewing my own beer as a hobby for over 15 years, and part of that I keg my beer to serve it. And last year I built this thing for myself. It's all handmade. It's out of wood skin. All the comments and suggestions that I get on videos and things that I've gotten in private messages were questions about this. So I thought I would do a quick video, but I don't think there is such a thing. So this could end up being a fairly long one. Might even take a couple of videos to give it a complete overview. I've got pictures and stuff that I took while I was putting it all together. So I thought I would incorporate those into the video to explain how this thing was put together, what it does, how it works. Maybe somebody else might want to make a duplicate of it for themselves. Other people might just have an interest in how it was all assembled and put together. Let me first say that I'm not a woodworker by trade or even a hobby per se. I had help from a good friend of mine who is a woodworker, does a lot of woodworking extensively in his own home and as a hobby, and has built a lot of things and has a lot of experience. And I gotta say thanks to Scott first off for allowing me to use his shop to build this, and for the guidance that he gave me and great suggestions. The original plan for this thing has changed somewhat because of his suggestions, and I think it's brought it to a whole new level. I think it's a solid unit and it's going to last, you know, probably generations. Other than equipment failures and stuff like that that can be fixed or replaced as needed, it should last a long time. But basically what it is, it's just a Kegerator. Inside the cabinet is a deep freeze. The deep freeze is controlled by a digital thermostat that monitors the temperature inside the keg, or inside the Kegerator, inside the chest freezer, and maintains the temperature at whatever temperature I set it. So that's beer serving temperatures for me, about 36 degrees to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. There's 5 taps on it, so I can have 5 different beverages on it at any time. It's not strictly for beer. That's the reason I have 5 taps. I don't always have 5 beers, but one of the taps currently has soda water on it. You can use that for mixing cocktails. Around here we've got kids. The kids like to use it for making sodas. We use concentrated syrups and stuff, and they just mix up a soda whenever they so desire. It works out economically and it's fun for them. I've also got mead. There's no reason why you can't have a carbonated wine. Right now I have 3 beers on tap. And that changes throughout the year and throughout the season depending on what I have on hand. So it holds 5 kegs inside. It's like a 21 cubic foot chest freezer. The unit itself is basically 5 major components. Number 1 being that chest freezer. Number 2 being the skirting that's around the chest freezer. Number 3 is the base that this thing is sitting on. The base has got wheels on it, so this thing actually does pull out and roll around on wheels fairly easily. The 4th component being the tabletop, and lastly this unit, which is called in the beer serving industry. It's called a Coffin Box, which is intended to hold the taps and the beer lines and the shanks and everything that are attached to the taps. And it's got another little tabletop on top where I store my beer glasses and so forth. I'll kind of break it down into individual components. Right now I'm going to turn off this video, turn it back on again when I have it open, and you can get a look on the inside. So what I've done is I just pulled this thing away from the wall a bit, because when I lift the lid, the Coffin Box lifts as well, and I need space in behind it so that it doesn't hit the wall. So I'm just going to open it up. Now that lid just resting up against the wall right now. So I've got Cornelius Kegs, or pop kegs. They're just kind of recycled use. They're hardly ever used in the industry anymore, so a lot of brewers are using them for holding beer nowadays. You know, you clean them out, sanitize them, refill them with beer, and use them for dispensing. I've got my CO2 tank right there inside the chest freezer as well. This isn't freezing cold, it's just cold, refrigerator temperature. So you can see I've got various gauges, one for every tank, so they can have every tank dispense at a different pressure, which is kind of suitable for different styles of beer. There's some extra space in here for bottles and stuff. I really don't have anything like that in here right now. On the lid, you can see this attachment, this hose here comes off of the drip tray underneath the taps, and anything that drips into that tray runs down into this hole and into a bottle that I have down on the bottom. You can see my beer lines that are attached to the kegs run into this hole, and then this gray line that's sticking out of this hole is actually the coupling for the temperature regulator, and that's the end of it is taped to one of the kegs so that it actually monitors the temperature of the kegs. I had to reinforce the lid of the freezer. There's a sheet of high density plastic in this section here where my bolts are. These bolts are what's holding the wooden lid, and that lid is really heavy, so it needs a lot of support, and this plastic is pretty flimsy inside the lid of the freezers. So I put this plastic in here to reinforce that and strengthen it a bit so that these bolts will actually hold something. You can also see that there is a gap, a significant gap. It's about 3/4 of an inch between the skin, the wooden skin, and the skin of the deep freeze itself. The deep freeze is just kind of sitting in here, and that gap is a ductwork system so that air can blow through there. I'll explain that in detail more later. You can also see in the corner here there's a post. It's a heavy brass post. It's actually just a piece of brass tubing with a heavy screw down inside of it holding it in place. That's screwed into this corner buttress, and that is going to hold the weight of the lid so that it doesn't compress the insulation in the lid, so that it stays, you know, fairly decent, because with the weight that I've put on this thing, it would just absolutely compress that down to be useless in no time. So I added these posts to absorb some of that weight. There's one on each end, and it holds the weight of the lid. That's basically the inside. It's pretty simple. You know, I've got all my different kegs all tagged and stuff, so I know what's what. It holds 5 kegs. I could get a 6th one in, and it would be a lot easier if I took the CO2 tank out of there, which I can do, but I really don't need it, so I leave my CO2 tank in there and let it occupy some space.